In 2015, I read the book A Force for Good, which is a collaboration between the Dalai Lama and Daniel Goleman, the author of Emotional Intelligence. Reading A Force for Good was an experience that changed my life. First, it helped me realize how common the feeling of being insignificant was, and how most people don't try to make a difference, not because they don't care, but because they feel too small to matter. Second, it took that feeling of powerlessness away. That doesn't mean that I've been upbeat and working hard at changing the world ever since. In fact, these past couple of years, I've had plenty of dark moments, and I'm sure there are plenty more dark moments to come. But one thing hasn't changed, my determination to not give up. And I'll share with you the 4 stories that stood out to me and made me feel that I mattered enough to be a force for good. First, there's the story about inspiration and positivity. In 2004, authors and researchers Michael Schellenberger and Ted Nordhaus published an article called The Death of Environmentalism. In it, they argued that groups who had good intent, in this case the environmentalists, were becoming too negative. Instead of inspiring people to take action, they were scaring and overwhelming everyone with their messages of doom and gloom. That needed to change, they said, and they reminded us that to capture the hearts of millions, Martin Luther King Jr. started his famous speech with, "I have a dream, not I have a nightmare." That's a very powerful message, and Daniel Goleman took that idea and explained that we're often compelled to take action when we have a positive vision, an image of life, how things could be. And I'll quote him here. He says, "Considering what life could be like invites originality, new ideas, and innovation. To survive," he said, "we need to recognize what's wrong. But to thrive, we need a North Star to follow to better alternatives, a rebooted GPS toward a more optimistic tomorrow." That was a very powerful lesson/reminder for me. Somewhere in the messier corners of my mind, I already knew that working towards a bright tomorrow is more inspiring than working to survive a gloomy present. But I couldn't explain why without feeling that I was fooling myself into taking action. Since I want to keep this video short and on track, I'll expand on that idea in a video called For a Dream, Not a Nightmare. But for now, I'll get back to the message of I Have a Dream story and say that it's important to reframe our problems into positive challenges that inspire us to figure out the solutions and take action. So when we are realistic, honest, hardworking, smart, and have good intent, there really is no problem too big to tackle. We can go from, "This is a nightmare," to, "But I have a dream. Now let's make it happen." Second, there is the story about why and how you matter. And for this, I'll have to tell you about the life cycle assessment, which is something scientists with too much time on their hands do. Not really. Life cycle assessment is the process of figuring out how everything we own and do affects water, soil, air, our health, the social environment. And we call this total effect the footprint. An eye-opening exercise is trying to calculate the footprint of making a smartphone. Most people are shocked to learn it takes about 6,200 steps to make a smartphone. One of the first steps involves the mining of rare elements in poor parts of China and Africa, usually in war zones and using slave labor. And one of the last steps is the work of villagers in poor parts of India. They work in terrible environments using toxic chemicals to take the circuit boards apart, melt them, and recover the precious parts for later reuse. Most people feel guilty when they hear this story. Sometimes the guilt is overwhelming. Daniel Goleman tells the story of students at Harvard who had to calculate their footprint, the impact of everything they owned and did. At the end of the project, many of them felt depressed. Some so much so that they felt the world would be better off without them. I understand that feeling. I struggled with it myself. But I had my aha moment years ago when I realized that guilt is a valuable tool. It shows that we care enough to recognize there's a problem and to want to not make it worse. The students at Harvard and everyone who struggles with guilt should be kinder to themselves. Their caring alone makes them a valuable part of the ever-growing team of humans who are determined to solve the world's problems. So here's a message that I hope reaches the heart and mind of anyone who struggles with guilt. You do matter, and the world is better off with you. Third is the story about taking action. Albert Einstein said that the world is a dangerous place not because of the evil people in it, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. I don't agree with Einstein's words about evil people, but I fully agree there are many evil human actions, and we have to do our best to prevent or stop them. I think everybody needs to be treated with kindness and respect, but I will never think it's okay to turn the other cheek in a conflict. I have this thing I tell myself that the only time it's okay to turn the other cheek is when inspiration hits me. Other than that, my course of action is do your best, make your best effort to prevent conflict, but recognize that unfortunately, even in this time and age, force is the only tool to prevent and stop harm. So to get back to Einstein's message, action is critical. We need to prevent and stop harm. Fourth, there's the story about success and results. And for this story, I have to go a few hundred years back in time. For many centuries, strong ship masts were a valuable commodity. If masts became damaged during storm and ships and crews became stranded, it was often impossible to replace or repair the masts. The sailors remained trapped and even lose their lives. In 1774, while he was sailing the South Pacific for a second time, Captain James Cook landed on Norfolk Island. There he saw some trees that amazed him with how tall and straight they grew, and he immediately thought they would make good wood for masts. As the story goes, he gathered seeds and started planting them on different islands throughout the Pacific, thinking that decades later they would become life-saving masts. That's a very powerful lesson, because Captain Cook knew for a fact he would not live to see those trees grow strong enough to be masts for his own ship, but he planted them for future generations. And I think that's something we all can learn from and become more future-minded in our actions. And that's hard because it's depressing not to see results from your actions. There's nothing wrong with that. Results are good. Results is what we're after. Results are the reason why we start taking actions. Results show that a goal was achieved. But we also have to start reconsidering what success really is, because we have to start being more patient, more humble, more content with being the generation that plants the seeds, knowing that we might not get to enjoy the shade of the trees. So, although I think results are an important indicator of whether or not we are on the right track, they are not a measure of success. effort and intent are. If we give a goal our best effort and best intent, then we are successful. As a side note, because of the exciting times we live in, I actually think we are the generation who can plant seeds, nurture saplings, and enjoy the forest. But I'll share that vision a little while when it becomes a little less fuzzy in my own mind. For now, I'll get back to A Force for Good and summarize its 4 important ideas. 1. Dream a dream. Yes, be realistic that we're in a nightmare, but use your creativity to dream a dream and your brain and hard work to make that dream happen. 2. You matter. Guilt shows that you care, and caring is a very important part of problem solving. First, it motivates us to take action, and second, it makes us better decision makers. Caring people have goals that are kinder and more fair. Third, take action. And fourth, effort and intent matter more than results. So I hope you enjoyed this book review. There's only one negative thing I could say about A Force for Good, and that is that it could have been a little bit better edited, more clear and better organized. But those shortcomings, petty and subjective as they are, don't take away at all from its very powerful message. And because I don't want to mess it up, I'll actually end this video with Dalai Lama's own words, which are, as human beings equipped with marvelous intelligence and the potential for developing a warm heart, each and every one of us can become a force for good.